how do you have conversations with people, especially in the digital space? It's obvious and intuitive in person, but so few of your prospective pool ever gets to that step. So how can I get more people connected with you in person? Well, I've got to have that same type of human connection in the digital space.
This is The Application, where higher ed enrollment strategy gets tactical. I'm Allison Turcio, marketer, curious question asker, and your guide through what's next and what's working in higher ed. Join us as we focus on what really matters, connecting with students and parents in more human, personalized ways, and using tools like AI to make that connection scalable and smart. From rethinking your inquiry campaigns to fixing funnel friction, everything we cover is about creating better experiences for students and better results for your team. Whether you lead the team, recruit the students, build the campaigns, or manage the message, you'll walk away from every episode with something you can use right now. Are you ready to get one step closer to your next enrollment win? Let's go. Today, we're talking about the magic word in enrollment marketing, from my perspective anyway, relationships. We're not just filling seats, we need to be building trust, and that takes a whole new approach to communication, tech, and mindset. My guest today is Dallin co-founder of Halda and one of the sharpest minds in enrollment innovation. His team is behind the SHIFTS framework, a roadmap for transforming how institutions connect with students. But before we dive into SHIFTS, Dallin, you've worked across startups, tech, higher ed. What's one recruitment or marketing tactic you've seen over the years that would totally flop with students today?
I think the biggest shift that's happening that makes things flop is just this concept of pricing. So in any sale, right? So I'm going to use some dirty words for the industry. In any sale, right, there's a concept of what's the prize. Let's say Nike drops a new set of sneakers. They're only making 20 of them. Getting that shoe is the prize. People will auction on it. They'll pay over for it, because that is the prize. The money's not the prize. The sale's not the prize. For a long time in enrollment marketing, the university has been the prize. You, student, need to prove to me that you're worth my time. Prove yourself to me. I am the prize. A seat at my institution is the prize that everyone's competing for. And that's just not the case anymore, right? So I think that by and large, there's still going to be some institutions out there that can continue to play that game. But I think that even the brands you may think of as soon as I said that, I think they're even in a situation now where that's not quite the case anymore. So I think that any institution that still has that posture will end up losing, because even the biggest brands now are over the top on customer service, over the top on experience, because that consumer is definitely the prize. So in our case, that student, and to a large extent, their family, as parents get more and more involved in this decision, they are the prize. And so how do you give them the most amazing experience? So in general, that's the thing that I think is just going to flop big time, is this posture of, you prove to me that you're worth my time.
Mm. Yeah, I think it says a lot if you look around at some of those top brands in higher ed about who's adding brand experts and marketing experts and customer experience experts to their teams right now. It's happening everywhere. It's not just happening at the challenger brands anymore, but so enter relationship building, right? Enter relationship first recruitment, because that's sort of the antidote to what you're saying. So tell me what you think that means in practice. What does it mean for all of us?
It really just means bringing the human element back into the digital spaces. When a family shows up on campus and knocks on the admissions door, as long as it's not the middle of the night, right?
I'm still waiting for one of those families to come knock on, hello, anyone in there?
Well, maybe I'm talking like 1970s. That's what they do, right? But point is, if you had a family on campus, we would all intuitively know what to do, how to have that conversation, how to bring them in, how to be curious about them. And when we get them into that physical space, man, we really want to take care of them in that way. And again, everyone in higher education that I've met that loves their job, we're in it for those moments, right? We're in it for those connections and helping people see how they could open their world with education. The trick is, how do you bring that into the digital space? That's what's been a very, very hard chasm to cross. And historically, it's probably been a little bit out of reach for most institutions. And that's not the case anymore. So to me, this relationship first idea is really to say shopping happens digitally first across the board, and especially in education. There's going to be some secret shopping going on across websites. Every survey done over the last 5 years have all said the website's my primary tool for understanding what this institution has to offer. But we haven't brought that same level of individualization and care to the digital space. We've brought a lot of automation, but unfortunately, automation has meant making everything more general.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't seen any automation that sets something up for relationship building yet.
That's right. At its core, I think that relationship building comes down to this idea of moments. What moment is this student in or this family in? It means I'm going to talk with you, not at you. I grew up in Utah. My family still lives in Utah. There's a lot of lake culture in Utah. So anyone listening that isn't familiar, hasn't been on a lake, there's all sorts of different kinds of boats. Some people like to water ski. Some people like to wake surf. Some people like to go tubing. I had a friend who wanted to go wake surfing with their family. So they go to this boat yard where they're going to rent a boat. The gentleman helping to facilitate this transaction starts to just talk at my friend about everything under the sun that this boat, about all of the boats. And he goes on for like 25 minutes. And this boat has that color and does da, 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 and that boat over there, ba, 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 ba. And I think he, over time, could see that my friend was getting a little fatigued. And he finally asked a question. What is it you want to do today? I just want to wake surf and I've got like this ages of kids. Oh, that's your boat right there.
Oh, could have saved everybody some time.
Saved everyone some time. And I think that that's just it. Like, we license names. And do we talk with those people or at those people? We talk at them. They come to the website. Are we talking with them or at them?
Yeah.
They submit an inquiry and we put them into our drip campaign. Are we talking with them or at them? I understand that this is like sort of a funny concept to be preaching during this age of budget cuts and market pressures and staff being understaffed, right? Like, great. How am I supposed to do that? But of course, we've got answers with modern technology. But to me, relationship building is that. How do you have conversations with people, especially in the digital space? It's obvious and intuitive in person, but so few of your prospective pool ever gets to that step. So how can I get more people connected with you in person? Well, I've got to have that same type of human connection in the digital space.
Let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. Foresight Tech was struggling to engage prospects promptly. Staff were overwhelmed and leads were slipping through the cracks. Then they brought in Element 451's Bolt agents. These AI-powered assistants stepped in to answer inquiries, send reminders, schedule visits, and route leads day or night. As a result, prospect to applicant conversion hit 25% within 3 weeks, and enrollment rose 12%. The impact? Counselors focused on high-value conversations, while Bolt agents handled the rest. Fast response, higher yield, happier staff. Support your counselors with 24/7 AI teammates. Try an agent today at element451.com/agents.
Yeah, everywhere and anywhere. It's the perfect segue because we're going to talk about this shifts framework that you all at Halda have come up with, which is a great approach that we can all apply to so many different situations in our work. But the first one, the letter S, stands for survey, start by listening. So what you were just saying is sort of the perfect segue for that. But let's tell everyone what shifts is in general, and then let's talk through sort of each piece of it. How's that sound?
Shifts is like this. First, survey, which, like we're saying, is like, how do you have conversations with people? H is my favorite one, helpful. We can spend a long time talking about that. I, individualization, which I think goes really tightly with being helpful. F stands for face. How do you bring the human element into your digital communications? T is for triggers. How can we just set up more intelligent ways to know when to deliver the messages? Final S here is for speed. Like, how quickly can I get someone that individualized answer?
Let's start with survey.
Okay.
We have to start by listening, right? The framework tells us. So start there and talk about what are some of the really low barrier ways that people can be gaining insights from prospective students and be able to take on this mindset of starting by listening, because in that story that you just shared, I mean, let's not make it about the boats. Let's make it about what people want to do with the boats, right?
Yeah. And I think that's just it, is like having the end in mind a little bit for our students. Like, we spend so much time in enrollment putting a bunch of knowledge in our heads about our institutions, our programs, our start dates, our alumni, all of these things. And it's really tempting to just like fire hose that out at people. It's too much information. So we've done these like audits with institutions. Some of these web ecosystems have over 100,000 pages. The biggest one I've seen has 700,000 pages inside of their web ecosystem. They just never have archived a single page, I don't think, in their entire existence. There's so much information out there. It's sort of like, for a while there in restaurants, it was get a bigger and bigger menu. Cheesecake Factory has 1,000 items in their menu. But then they started to learn that, anymore, the job to be done isn't unlimited choice. It's the right choice. People want the right choices, not necessarily unlimited choice. Constricting that information flow is crucial. So it starts by how do you know that? So how would you ever know what to show them or what to talk to them about? Now, some people come in and say, well, it should be read the tea leaves, data analytics, and guess. Here's my best guess.
And that's helpful.
No, I want to hear what you're thinking about.
No, I was just going to say that's helpful. But I have found if you just ask a student or you just ask
Bingo.
a parent what they're thinking, they're more than happy to tell you, actually. I don't know why we're so scared to just ask a question. Nice answerable question.
I'll tell you my hunch on that.
Okay.
Because I completely agree with you. My whole paradigm is, and what we've experienced at Halda, is if you just ask them, they'll tell you. You can shortcut that whole thing. You don't have to read the tea leaves. You don't have to say, oh, they're wearing this type of shirt and those types of shoes and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Based on that profile and my persona match, this is the most likely answer. Or you could just simply say, what would you like? And then So here's where I think people are afraid to do it. It's a responsibility. If you ask and they tell you, well, not just answer, right? If I ask, let's take something very straightforward and simple. What's your program of interest? I now have a responsibility to remember that and use it in what I use to communicate with you from there on out. Now, if I never really ask, I can absolve myself of that responsibility and I can keep guessing and I keep sending whatever. But if I ask, what's your biggest motivation for seeking a degree? What are you trying to accomplish? I now have a responsibility to use that on an ongoing basis. So my hunch is that a lot of teams don't ask because they're afraid of that responsibility. They're afraid of letting someone down, because it is annoying as to be on the other side of that table and be like, I already told you that. Why do you keep asking me the same thing? Are you guys not listening? So that's where it does come with a lot of responsibility. So if you ask, they will tell you, but then you have to have the systems in place to actually make use of that information.
I love it, but I also know, so the thing I want to acknowledge for everybody is that the whole information about our institution through a fire hose part, there's a lot of internal pressure to do that too. There's not patience for, let's get to know the student and then talk about the parts of our institution and our brand that resonate the most or are most valuable to the student, right? There's this internal pressure thing that we're also always constantly kind of battling up against. So it's really hard to be able to truly center yourself on the student and center yourself on the audience and let a lot of that go. It's hard work.
Where do you think that pressure comes from? Why is there that pressure to fire hose?
I think it actually comes from a good place because people are really proud of what's happening on our campuses. And they are doing really great things and they want to see those stories get told and they want to make sure every student knows these 10 things because they all are so important and special about our institution. So I think it comes from a good place. It really does. And we are lucky that we have these amazing stories to tell on college campuses, right? That's one of the things we can point to and say, wow, not every organization has that kind of treasure trove of messaging that they can build on. So I think it's that. I think it actually comes from pride, right? So maybe makes it harder. But I think about things like if we're really centering on the students, let's talk about a call to action. We make call to actions all about us. We want you to apply. We want you to visit. We want you to deposit, right? All those are the actions we want to take. And it's really hard to feel okay about changing, making that shift. And instead of saying apply now, we're saying something like, let us help you find your fit, right? Or find your fit, to shorten it. It's that's really hard because one, it's different from what we've known. And two, it's hard to explain to everybody else on campus what you're trying to do.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point. It's coming from a good place. And I think the other good point that you make here is that the process that a student or family will go through doesn't actually need to change that much with this methodology. So let's go back to our boat example. The salesman in the boat yard has an objective of renting out a boat. That's his objective, right? Not too dissimilar from an admissions counselor saying, my objective is to help bright fit students enroll and help them see that this is the right place. Now, methodology number one was, I'm going to tell you everything about it because I have all the best boats that can do all the most amazing things. Well, that could be the same thing for the admissions counselor. But by asking the question, he still was able to tell the right stories. Like that story was still in his back pocket. Oh, this is the boat. They can do whatever, and I can tell the right story. So I guess my point is that if we can make this shift that we're talking about and just ask the question, you can still use the same toolkit, right? But all of a sudden it's like, oh, I now know that this family is worried about safety for their child and has a goal of being a top tier chemist, a Nobel Prize winning chemist someday. They've dreamt that from their childhood. I may still recommend a campus visit, but I can do that in a way that connects exactly with what they're trying to do. Like, you know what? Let me tell you about safety. Let me tell you about chemistry. And you might not be thinking about this element and that element. Can I get you onto campus so I can just show you this stuff in person?
Yeah.
How much more compelling is that now to that family versus just apply now, visit camp,
So much more.
So like the recommendations, the pathway is still the same, but you're able to just twist it to put it in the light for, that family needs.
And that's actually where the H comes in helpful, right? Because
That's
the
right.
example you just shared was, it wasn't selling, it was helping. I want to connect you with what's going to be important to you. Here's what I'll get to show you if you're able to come. And so we're repositioning it as value.
Yep.
And we're repositioning it around something that's important to the student and the family.
Exactly. And that's how you're helpful, right? So you can't really be helpful to someone going on to H unless you know something about them, right? Because if you don't know what moment they're in, what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to get done, you're just guessing on helpfulness. So that's why survey is the first step. Tell me more about what you're trying to get done. And there's definitely some observability there, right? If I'm on a financial aid page, I'm probably trying to get the job done of how am I going to pay for this, right? You can assume that. But then being helpful is just like what you're saying, is to say, okay, how can I, instead of having calls to action or offers of value, let's say, rather than offering a value of apply now, well, that's a very specific time, or even more generally, let's stay on the financial aid example. A financial aid page will have a bunch of information about how people pay for school. But is that what an individual wants to know? Not really. Like, it's somewhat helpful. It's more helpful than no information. But what's really helpful is a prescription on how can I pay for school given my circumstances, right?
Or what will my scholarships look like? Instead of here are the scholarships available, what would I get in scholarships? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
And this is where helpful really blends into individualized, right? These two are sort of coupled. It's like individualization is the key to being helpful. First, I'm going to ask something about it. I'm going to understand the moment you're in, and then I'm going to offer help, which is an individualized answer. So let's take this scholarship example. One of the first things we ever did at Halda was when we first had this idea around, okay, how can we be more helpful to people? How can we individualize the content better? We had a partner. It was Ursuline College at the time. They were trying to figure out how to get more transfer students. This is one of the first things we ever did. They said, well, we partner with Phi Beta Kappa to try and get their list, which I think is a common thing. We've got this web page, but like we get maybe 10 leads a year of people like responding. And then otherwise, like we get more transfers, but like I have no way to control it. And so we said, okay, let's take a look at that page. It turns out they had something like 1,500 visits a month to their transfer page. Now, their transfer page had decent content, one of which was this matrix that had scholarships for transfer students, right? Like GPAs, amounts. So like a student should be able to just, okay, that's what I should get, right? All we did was we took that matrix and it stayed on the page, but then we made a form element out of it and did like this offer personalized value and saying, tell us more about you and we'll tell you what scholarship you could qualify for if you transfer to Ursuline College. So that was our offer value. Again, same traffic, same page, even same content. Like that content is on there. But by saying you confirm your details and I will tell you the match, we went from 10 to 15 inquiries for transfer students a year to 10 to 15 a week. Just by saying, let me individualize this. Let me confirm for you how you might pay for school. How does this apply to you? And just that, even that small tweak made a huge difference for them, at least, for that specific effort.
I think it's important, in case everyone missed it, we did move on to I.
Sorry.
So we did SH and I. We're on individualization. We do talk a lot about personalization and customization in higher ed marketing, right? Like those are definitely buzzwords. But really what I've seen is mostly people just kind of mail merging things in, inserting a name or inserting a high school name or inserting a major. But what you're talking about is taking content that exists and repackaging it and showing it to a student that makes it individualized to them, as most relevant as it can be to that individual student.
Well, it is. And I think that this is truly the magic of this AI build out that we're seeing. And this is where, for an institution, we're at a tectonic level shift in technology right now. And it's really important for institutions to think about the platforms that will be the best in the future, not just like the nice little widget that's helpful right now. But I think it's important for folks to think strategically about what type of platform do I need to be successful here. So as we talk about individualization, how do you do that well and at scale? And tying into this idea, Allison, that you just mentioned of it's about repackaging info you already have. So let's take this down a few levels. At the basement level of all of this, it comes down to data, or in AI speak, knowledge bases. AI is only going to be as good as the knowledge or data you feed it. You want to keep hallucinations low. You want tight controls, but then you also need to make sure you're feeding it good data because it'll spit out an answer, right? I think we've all experienced this where it'll produce something. How do you do this in the right way? So in our thinking and in our experience, this is what we've come to. It's really all about, at the fundamental level, having the best knowledge base about the student that you possibly can. Not just what's their name, what's their email, what's their phone number, what's their motivation, what's their program of interest, what's their financial situation, at least what they've told us about it. What are their biggest motivations? What are their biggest concerns? All of these things wrapped up, including what have their behaviors on the website been? Like as much of a profile as you can get, the more robust you can get there, the better. Because what you want to do then is take everything you've learned about the student in that profile and use that profile to then query knowledge base number 2, which is the knowledge base about your institution. What are your programs? What are your admission deadlines? What are your success stories? What do your alumni go on to do? What are the financial policies, right? So it just becomes a system of when a question's asked, how can I say, hey, I have a student with this type of profile that's asking a question. Use that as part of the context to pull out an answer. At its core, that's what's going on. So as we think about how do you individualize at scale, it becomes very, very important that you have a consistent, persistent knowledge base to make sure that you can be responsible with and use anything a student tells you in every interaction moving forward. In tech speak, that's called a CDP, a customer data platform. Now, there's some customer data platforms you can pull off the shelf. Blue Conic, Salesforce has one built in, right? Where the point of a CDP is to say, I'm going to pull together information about website behavior, CRM data, form data, all of this stuff into one database so that then I can make it actionable. So I can use it to individualize my emails, my text messages, my phone calls. So this is what Halda does. So what makes me a little bit concerned about some of the AI solutions out there on the market is that it's not a full platform. It doesn't take into account all of the interactions. And so, yeah, I've used AI to automate, let's say, a phone call, But does that phone call go back into a database that then can inform my email strategy, that can then inform a text messaging strategy, that can then change the content on my website on the next visit based on the phone call that happened? So if you're going to do individualization at scale, that you need the right infrastructure in place.
Those pieces all need to be able to connect to each other.
And speak to each other.
You can't just personalize the experience on the website and then, because that actually sets expectation that the communications, for instance, that you get will also then be personalized.
Yep.
So you have to have it all connected into it. I think one of the things that scares people off of this sort of concept is that it feels like we're removing the human. It feels like we're removing a lot of face-to-face contact, or maybe potential for face-to-face contact, because now they don't need to come to me, the admissions counselor, or come to me, the financial aid counselor, to get their question answered, right? They can, there's other ways to get that. They can sort of self-serve through some of these tools. And I think that's one of the things. There's this fear of taking the human out. And when we're talking about relationship building, that's a big issue, right? So how do we, getting to F face, make it human, how do we do that? How do we connect the tech and connect to these opportunities, but still keep it human?
Yes, I love that question. We had a school partner that was quite concerned about that exact question. At Halda, one of the core values we have, 8 on the wall. We won't go through all of those. We're already going through one of our frameworks right now. Values will be a different conversation. But one of them that's really, pertinent to this question is this. We believe strongly that when the student wins, everyone wins. It's about having options. We shouldn't fear self-serve, because if a student and family, if they say it's a better experience for me to self-serve on this set of problems or this set of information gathering, we want to make that as frictionless, delightful, and personalized and lovely as possible. If family B, on the other hand, says, I really want to talk with someone, I want to meet someone early on in my experience, that's what we'll do. But in more broad strokes, not on the individual basis, how do you bring face into it? Here's the truth of the matter. The number of students that think about you but never talk to you is ginormous. There's just so many more that come and go. There's a window of opportunity and influence that opens that they never step through because they come and go unengaged.
Or they come and go at a time you're not available. How about that?
Yes, they come and go. And I mean, we've got gobs of data about like after hour stuff. People are busy, right? And they're looking at it after work, and parents are looking at it. And anyway, so the idea here that AI is going to replace the human is totally wrong, in my opinion. Here's the example. The school was very concerned about that. And so we had this whole strategy of having a persistent secondary call to action, right? So most of our initial calls to action, we're going to automate. Like, hey, I can give you this value, and I'm going to deliver on that in a personalized way, leveraging AI and other technology right away. But then we have secondary calls to action all throughout the experience. And a primary one that they wanted was they did want to connect people to have phone calls with their counselors. Now, historically, the way they'd done their calls to action was just like, call us, call now, like here's our number. Well, what we said was, why don't we use a scheduling technology? So we integrated with their scheduler, right? So that students, once they've gotten some initial value, like, oh, wow, that it really hit home, they could choose to go ahead and book a time to speak with a counselor. That counselor had never had more conversations with prospective students, because we were able to bring so many more into a conversation, and we were able to make it so much easier to say, rather than calling in and maybe I'll get someone or maybe I'll wait on hold or whatever. It's like, no, I've got a scheduled specific time to talk with this person. They had to get to a point where like, okay, now I need to like block off time so I'm only available here and here, because it's like it took up their whole calendar. Like we had a little bit too much volume, and that was a different kind of problem. But when done thoughtfully, that we can make that initial digital experience so individualized and so helpful and so delightful that people say, oh, you've built trust with me. I want to take that next step. And I think by and large, again, even without something like a Halda, help people schedule times so they feel like they'll waste less time and offer real value in that conversation. Don't just say, talk with us in general. Yeah. Like be thoughtful about where you place those calls to action in the website environment so that I'm going to help you with these specific problems.
Are you purposely segueing to time, RT?
Not really.
No, but it was a really good example, because I think a lot of what we do is we send something out and saying, I want to meet with you and we're expecting a response back and it's on our timeline. What you're trying to do is reposition it so we're meeting students in the moment that they're in.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so here's the great news about these like giant 100,000 page websites that we've got in higher education. They act like a Google search, probably because they get to us through searching, right? Like,
Yes.
Tuition and scholarships at XYZ University, do that search and then click right through to a secondary or tertiary page on your site. But the point is, where they go on your website gives you a ton of information about what they're trying to solve. Other industries have done a lot in terms of setting up triggers for communication in really intelligent ways, right? So if you think about Amazon, right? You're browsing around, you're looking at different things. The next email you get isn't a general come and shop. It's you look at this page, you look at this product. I'm going to tell you more about those products and also related products that you may also be interested in.
My favorite is when they send me deals on the ones, which I know aren't really deals and they're just making it look like it was a deal, but hey, it's smart.
But it's smart, right? Because they're just leveraging the observed behavior that they have about you to say, oh, this would be helpful. This is the right offer of value for you, right? That's what we're doing in terms of triggers. And again, of course, I'm going to think what we do is the right way to do it because we wouldn't have built it this way otherwise. But hopefully it's sparking some ideas of how people can do it, leveraging the technology they currently have. But what we're doing is saying, let's use that observed behavior. So if Sally is on the website on Tuesday and she visits the tennis club page or the tennis team page, the biology page, and the financial aid page, on Wednesday, the email that I'm going to send Sally using our system is going to be about those specific things. Whereas John visits the theater page and the voice coaching page and maybe he's really into like foreign theater or foreign films, right? And maybe he fills out a form even saying, I'm concerned about the dorms and who my roommate might be. Well, then I can send John that information tomorrow. So like when Netflix publishes a new show, they don't send it to everybody. They say which profiles match. So it's all about those types of ideas, right? To where it's like, how can I leverage what I know about you to get the right content in front of you and put the systems in place to observe behavior such that it can be adaptive. The trouble that we have with drip campaigns right now is that, let's go back to my second student. I forgot his name already. I'm going to go to Timmy, whatever his name was before. But
I remember Sally.
Well, Sally was number one.
Sally stuck with me. I don't know why.
So Timmy, my other example, who was concerned about dorms, well, maybe the drip campaign that Tim is in right now, email number 6, talks about dorms, but it's not slated to come for 4 more weeks. But he was on the website yesterday and told us he was worried about it. How can we not give him that specific information now? So it's about how do we break down this concept of drip campaigns, make it way more fluid and observe their behavior to then speak to them at the right moment.
And is that what you all mean about the last S speed? That example of, I'm not waiting 4 weeks to learn about my top priority topic. I'm going to learn about it right away.
That's right. It's just offering opportunities to, like, Google. They did these foundational studies where they observed that page load time differences in like the tenths of seconds yielded massively higher conversions, right? And so speed is just the currency of the modern, organization to consumer relationship. I mean, everyone loses their minds if they have to wait longer for 2 days to get something that they order online anymore, right? And whereas it's a miracle that that's even possible, right? But we've become so accustomed to it. So I think speed also, for whatever reason, communicates sophistication, meaning that my systems are sophisticated enough that I can deliver right away. So how do we do this at Halda? Well, any form that's filled out, we give instant personalized response pages to any form. It's not thanks, we'll be in touch. It's nope, you told me this, I'm going to give you information and next steps and content and helpfulness immediately upon that confirmation page. But then it's also like what we were talking about. We've got triggers in place that I can observe your behavior, and based on that behavior, I can send you an email. I've got content in place where if an administrator publishes a new content card saying, hey, we've got an event in Chicago. We can identify prospective students in our database in Chicago and just send them an email about that because we're aware of their profile and the timing that's happening. So it's all about speed. And in order to pull that off, again, it comes down to these two databases. What do I know about you? What do I know about the school? How do I use that to query? And then it's about making sure you've got the systems in place to observe the behavior, to send it out right at the right time.
What I really like about the Halda forms on Sienna's website is that the student doesn't have to click around or figure out the navigation or try to use the search to find what they're looking for. They answer a couple questions about themselves and then it gives it to them in the same window. They don't even have to go around. So there's ways to save the person's time too, right? Serve them quickly, but also nobody wants to be going around on these .edus trying to find the cost of attendance page. Nobody wants to do that. They just want it served right up to them. So it's what we need to be doing.
I love this point because sometimes we get these false metrics that we optimize for. So I've talked to a few marketing departments where they're like, wait, but this might actually hurt my time on page or my time on the site, right? Because that was a metric that used to mean engagement, right? But does it really mean engagement or does it just mean frustration? Yeah, I think it can lead to these funny little ways about going about it. So I think that as an industry, if we can, and I think this isn't hard to convince anyone of, if we can keep focus on like, if the student's winning, everyone wins, right? That's going to be a huge like North Star for us to make progress. The other thing, would not too surprising in the shifts framework, told you that H was my most favorite, helpfulness. The other thing that we do that could be implemented on every campus without Halda is just asking a little question. Was this helpful? Was this helpful? Like whenever you interact with a family, whenever you interact with a student, whenever you send an email, have a little survey saying, was this helpful? Yes, no, and invitation for comments. That in and of itself will be so instructive. That's the North Star thing for us. We get dozens and dozens of pieces of feedback a day that we're constantly running through systems and algorithms to understand how can we improve our systems along that helpfulness trajectory, or that helpfulness vector rather. Because the more helpful we can be, the higher we've observed, the higher chance our school partner has of winning that student.
Yeah, I really like that. Giving us those North Stars, stay focused on if the student wins, we win. Enough said. That was the whole shifts framework. We did all of it.
We did it.
How's that? And I want to give a shout out to the Halda blog because a lot of this is talked about there. There's some great content around all of the pieces of shifts, but also some great articles about in an overview sense of shifts. So go to Halda's website and check out the blog if you want to dig in on this more. And Dallin, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite. It was fun.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
Thanks for listening to The Application. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to higher ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and so much more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.